Hey everybody, it's your old pal Neil. Is that gonna be my tagline? No, maybe. Anyway, just checking in. Just wanted to let you know that today we picked up this bad boy. And I have about, I honestly can't tell you, but less than 5 cigarettes left. So that is happening. Nervous about that, but also have accepted it. It's time to happen. I've been fortunate it hasn't had too many visible effects besides what we've already talked about earlier. I also got a chance to see my brother. He happened to be in the area for a few days and got to see him, and it got me thinking that I should really clarify something. I'm about to release the next portion of this vacation video, and the question he asked me is, what happened to the Neil from Michigan? I think it has to do with the veil thing that Amanda was talking about. I seem to think clearer. And at that point, it was about a week after I'd finally figured out that I wasn't my thoughts. And, you know, a lot of the things that, a lot of the suffering and attachment, well, you'll see in this video. I was kind of giddy. So when we saw each other at Silver Lake, it was like I was a different person compared to the, see, he wants to say pathetic guy in the videos previous to this one. I think it was editing all of this stuff that made me, I don't even know. It all seemed so clear then. Well, you'll see. I think that all the things I talk about in this upcoming video, I need to apply to every portion of my life. And just rewatching it just a few minutes ago, really for the first time in a few weeks, which has really been the few weeks where this has hit the hardest, gives me a little, no, it gives me a lot of hope. It's in me. So this next part of the vacation video has both Amanda and my story. Kind of a little history of us and how we got to where we are today, pretty much. And I'm really gonna think about this. Not very long, because I think I'm just gonna do it. But think about the things that I talk about here in these upcoming videos and the things that I did to combat the negativity and to combat the story of skeleton me with a Doogie Howser head. Is fiction. So maybe it'll help you find a little truth. I do know that I no longer lack for a purpose. I no longer feel purposeless. Was that right? Purposeless? It's just the constant negativity and the bad habits and the... There it is. So my family has all been very excited to see this video I've been making and this whole process that I've been learning. And honestly, the vulnerability venture just happened in the last week. I found myself facing the same hurdles all over again that I faced in music and that I faced in everything else that I've put my heart and soul into and tried, and then run into a brick wall, it seems like, of negativity, of doubt, of negative self-talk, of bullcrap, reasons to stop. So I'm glad we made this video as a reminder for me of what I can be, of when my thinking is clearer. So I need to develop Michigan thinking wherever I'm at. So I hope that clarifies some things, and I really hope you guys enjoy this view of Michigan, our view of Michigan. And yeah, we'll be back with the check-in in a little bit.
When I say the word home, what's the next thought that pops into your head? Well, for me, it's always been this place, the farm where I grew up until I was in my mid-20s. The farm my grandfather started way back in 19-aught yonder, whenever it was, The farm that my dad eventually took over, and that I had plans to take over. Oh, yeah, and I probably also think of Drench, the fairly successful band I was in that followed the farm. Anyone want to hear what that sounded like? No? Well, here it is anyway. That would all be great if those were the things that I remembered. But I always chose to focus on the negative side of things. Like, the house across the street is still owned by my mom and my stepdad, but the farm and my grandparents' house right there on the same side of the road were auctioned off. And it's hard to believe it's been 20 years since we sold it. And that band footage? Well, yeah, that was really cool. But the memory that I have most is recognizing that I was an alcoholic by the end and having to turn up to shows right before we went on, and then having to leave, not being able to hang out. In comes the guilt and shame and resentment for the whole entire place. So when an opportunity came for my brother and I to move to Louisville, we jumped. I mean, the chance to start over was way too appealing to me at this point. Anywhere but Fremont will do. I'd like to say that moving there changed everything for me, and it was great. But the fact is, it wasn't. Because it turns out, Louisville, Kentucky, and Kentucky in general are the bourbon capital of the world. So I was soon hiding alcohol in my room and again feeling out of place, which reinforced the limiting belief that there was something really wrong with me. Well, then my saving grace comes along. There he is, Thornbugs, and the Reedy Rooster, and she the best. Once he was born, drinking was just right off the table. And Louisville finally started to feel a little bit more like home. I felt like I finally belonged somewhere again, like I knew where my place was. But the recession in 2008 really threw a curveball at us and had us moving all the way to St. Pete, Florida. Here's Thorn doing a little dance for you. Come on, now, hey. And it felt like we'd really landed in paradise. I mean, this was literally our front yard, and this was literally our view out of the back door. That's a dolphin right there, just swimming away. It had been 3 years since I'd had a drink, but I still felt uncomfortable hanging out in crowds or with people. I remember the IHOP where we made the decision to go ahead and to try drinking again. Well, it started off small, but it took less than 2 years for me to destroy everything that I'd built up, including the relationship with my son's mom. So after a short separation, which wound me up in Colorado for a month, which I'm thankful for my brother and his family for taking me in, and then back to Louisville, to a 2-bedroom apartment with no outside space except for a concrete parking lot and 50-50 custody of Thorin. I saw my family when I could, but Mom and Dad were divorced by then, so going home meant 3 stops. And between Thorin's kidney stone issues, poor kid, and my own personal issues, the vacation time just was never enough. So I isolated and told myself it was keeping me safe and keeping me sober. Work, come home, provide for my son, and do the best I could to distract myself with video games or whatever I could in the weeks I didn't have him. It also led to 3 trips to a mental institution / rehab, where on the 3rd trip I finally decided to admit that I didn't know what the heck I was doing and do what somebody else had done. So I did the 12 steps with a sponsor. It taught me so much about my base motivations and why I do the things that I do. I'd recommend anybody trying to quit to go ahead and do that first thing with all your heart and soul. The load felt a lot lighter, so I worked. I worked so hard I went from being in rehab to running a multi-million-dollar shop a little more than a year later. But there was no joy in it. There was no sense of satisfaction for me. There was this hole that needed to be filled, and I was doing everything that needed to be done to do that, but it wasn't helping. So I fell. Again. And landed here. Landmark Recovery of Louisville. See, they were a little different than the places I'd been to before that. The other places had seemed to be one way and that was the only way. But Landmark showed me that there's different ways to achieve the same purpose. And for some reason, the things that they were teaching, though some were the same things I'd heard before, really started to sink in and make sense to me. First and foremost being, my thoughts trigger everything. The thought comes before any emotion or any feeling my body has. So I've learned to watch those Speaking of emotions and thoughts and feelings, they all flew out the window when I first saw this guy. I met Caleb out in the courtyard with him playing guitar and singing, and it sparked something in me that I'd forgotten about. My passion for music. And it seemed like that hole that I'd felt inside of me started to fill a bit. So we started making music when we both got out, and things seemed to be looking up for me. My heart started to open up, and wouldn't you know it, that's when Amanda showed up in my life. I've never met a person with a bigger heart or a bigger drive to fulfill what her heart sings, and she wanted mine to sing too. So she invited me to quit my job and move to Henderson, which is just a little over 100 miles from Louisville. She also helped me start Nettie Sounds to truly let my heart sing. See, she believed in me, even when I didn't. She encouraged me when I thought everything I was doing was just a waste of time. I also saw how I could contribute to the family through my past experiences. I finally felt like I belonged somewhere again. It was the hardest decision ever to move further away from Thorin, but the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result, and Louisville just clearly wasn't working for me. We don't spend as much time together as I would want, but I feel like the time we do spend together is even more special now. What I was also able to explore was the reason why the hole was there in the first place. The reason I never felt like I belonged anywhere after a certain point. It was because of the story I was telling myself. My life was a life focused on the past, was a life focused on regret, of guilt and shame about the things I did, not about the things I was doing now, or never about the future. So I had essentially created the hole by thinking there was something missing from my life. That was the story I was telling myself. Well, it's time to write a new story. And in this story, I get to see my child as much as I can. Plus, I get 2 new children who are wonderful in themselves and are already starting to feel like my own, and who I can help on a daily basis. So my new story is about help, hope, and love. And I realized that every time I went back home, I was telling myself the story, and I only remembered the band that didn't work out and the farm that didn't work out. Not the people I love who are there, and the beautiful scenery and lakes and rivers and streams that Michigan has to offer. So when I took Amanda back to Michigan for the first time, you know what it's like when a fridge is running and all of a sudden it stops? You never really knew it was there until it was gone? Well, those feelings were gone. For the first time that I can remember, I actually wanted to go home. I wanted to show my kids where I did this and where I did that. And I also wanted to experience things I'd never experienced before, like driving a boat on Silver Lake or being able to fly the drone over places I'd grown up. But when a disagreement the next morning when we were supposed to go to my mom's brought all that fear and resentment back, we had to make a decision. So Amanda and I talked, and for me, the best thing to do when a mood is about to take over is just to change, to get up and move. Just change something, change anything about what I'm doing. The plan had been to take the kids up to Mackinac Island, and it was going to be a surprise. But on a weird whim, we decided to ask the kids if they'd even be interested in that. And it turns out they weren't. So we were going to head up north anyways, so let's do it a day early. So we called my mom, and we were able to change the plans with them and with my sister to later in the week. Very fortunate there. So where exactly do we go? The kids said they really were interested in water stuffs, and they had so much fun on the lake the day before that let's just focus on a water place north. I don't know. Sounds like a good plan to you? Sounds like a good plan to me. Let's do it. I mean, we had the house till Friday, so we might as well, if we don't find a place, we've always got a place to come home to, right?
I'm not a very spontaneous person. I like to plan things a lot. So this whole thing was pretty weird for me. Not knowing where we were going to be staying was really freaking me out. And the worst part was there was no cell signal, so I couldn't really check my phone to even really dig into what Airbnbs were available. And thanks to TikTok, Michigan's become a very, very popular travel destination. So with that being said, there really wasn't a whole lot available whenever I did eventually get to check and see what there was there. The mood was starting to change a little bit in the car, and my anxiety was on high alert. But I was trying really hard to just trust my husband right now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna be real honest with you. When I tell you I'm hungry, you got about 15 minutes before I go into full beast mode. Dairy Queen just wasn't gonna cut it that day. So we decided to hop back on the road and see what else we could find.
Apparently, Baldwin is home to Troutorama, July 21st through the 24th. And on the left here, you'll see the City Hall.
We did eventually come up onto a Subway, but that wasn't gonna suit everybody. So half of us were gonna get Subway and half of us were gonna get gas station food. But neither the Subway or the gas station were open. So,
Baldwin City Hall again on your right. Troutorama, 21st through the 24th.
I did remember seeing a pizza place just a little bit up the road, so we decided we'd head back there and check that place out. Pompeii's Pizza was pretty awesome. We still didn't have any cell service, so we're still a little bit stressed about that. But we got our bellies full, and I think it was time for car naps.
Here's what I think about car naps.
Smells like a farm. That's poop. Cow poop.
I gotta be honest, I was getting pretty worried we weren't gonna be able to find a place. So a lot of times, instead of running negative thoughts, I like to sing little songs about things that might frustrate me. Like this about the tractor that pulled out in front of me.
Come on, rake. How you gonna pull in front of me with your grass rake on your attachment stand? You gonna go? Oh, look at that. They got your own lane. Never mind. Shooting my can and shut my behind. What? Look at that sign. Coming up on Crystal Mountain, apparently. Gonna go fast as a lawnmower said. Wasn't a grass rake at all.
I like to think the silence after one of my songs is awe. That's what I like to think.
People come skiing here in the winter times, and then in the summer times they ride bicycles.
Score! We found a place to use the bathroom, and we had 1 bar of signal and booked us an Airbnb. Traverse City, here we come. Blah, blah, blah.
All I need's a beat, really.
Put your poop in a turn, then you flush it down the toilet. Don't forget to wipe your butt, because they're gonna get ointment. You have to put ointment on it, because they're gonna irritate it. That's why you wipe your butt.
See, it's a public service.
Alpaca Boutique. Is that where you take your alpaca to go?
Alpaca.
You know what? I said the word wrong, honey, okay?
Alpaca. Alpaca sprout.
Hey, you're taking my alpaca boutique. You coming? We're getting her hair did today, and she's gonna get her hoofs trimmed purple.
So we had told the kids where we were headed, basically. And then Sophie started asking about towns named Trevor. So we had her Google it, and she said there's a Trevor, Wisconsin. And for some reason, she found this hilarious. So from then on, everything we thought about was in Trevor.
Go to Trevor.
Come to Trevor. We got the alpaca. We got the, I can't even say it no more. But I try to add an accent to it that ends in L. Alpaca.
Alpaca.
What the hell is an alpaca boutique?
I don't know.
Can somebody get on their phone and type that in?
G&D Alpaca Boutique, located in beautiful Manistee, Michigan, is a beautiful setting with a pasture for female alpaca and a pasture for the male alpaca. Unique boutique offering alpaca-based products. Adding this year a You Pick bouquet. Visit the Fairy Trail and bring a picnic lunch. That definitely was off their Facebook page. But look at these alpacas. I do alpacas. Is he alpacas? Yes, he is. If I had a dime for every time I needed an alpaca-based product, like a sweater, seriously though, it looks like a wonderful place. Y'all should check it out. We didn't stop this time, but only out of ignorance. It really looks like a great place. And speaking of great places, Clark's Dairy King. Not Dairy Queen, but the Dairy King, ladies and gentlemen. The Queen had let us down earlier, so let's see what the King's got. Apparently, back a long time ago, back in Dairyland, the King and Queen had a little contest to see whose ice cream was better. and the king kind of won. He actually kind of dominated, and it turns out that's a federal offense in Dairyland. But instead of chopping off his head, which is kind of mean, they decided to banish him to Beulah, Michigan, which from our vantage point was a pretty cool place to get banished. I mean, he has his own train station, mini golf course, that outhouse in the back. I mean, you can go to the bathroom there, and you can write on the wall, which we asked politely, and it turns out that's a thing. So they provided Noah with a Sharpie, and he did his best rendition of Carl. Carl's the name Thorin gave his foot brace. Oh, that's why we love him.
We're a pretty artsy-fartsy household. Noah's medium seems to be ink. He really likes Sharpies and drawing with dark pencils. He's not much of a color guy. He's gonna be applying to art school here in the fall. Tell you what though, I don't know why they banished the king. He's pretty awesome. That was the best banana split I've ever had.
Raspberries, Saskatoons. Look at this. Cherries. We could have fruit diarrhea all week, guys. Fruit diarrhea for everyone. Oh, it'll smell good, but it'll be no fun. Yes.
Asparagus?
Especially asparagus.
Can
Yes.
you eat asparagus on an alpaca?
Yeah, only if it's at the boutique. And it got its hair did. Whoa. This reminds me of you.
What I love most about Michigan is that it looks a lot like a lot of other places I've been. I could see a lot of it looking like Oregon and Washington, and some of it looks a lot like New England. It really resembles Maine quite a bit.
Traverse City, come on down. Cherry capital of the world. Traverse City, Michigan.
You can almost hear the confusion from the back seat.
We're not in Traverse City.
There we are.
Here we are. We just hit the city limit a minute ago.
So we're in Wisconsin now?
No.
What?
Traverse City.
Oh, okay.
He went, nope.
Look at the sky,
Turn
though.
left onto Michigan 22 South, Southwest
Trevor.
Bay Shore Drive.
Well, it sounds like Traverse City, but no, it's Traverse City.
I thought you were saying treble. Treble.
Traverse City.
Continue on Michigan 22 South.
Here we go, guys. We're almost there. Almost to Prashad. That's fine. We'll go to Gray. Okay. Here we go. Now I've heard they got things over in Europe called scenic drives. They're pretty nice, is what I hear. This one right here, on your right, if you see it. See the water, see the sky, see the sunshine. Pretty darn good, if you ask me. So here's the house coming up on the left. If you see the truck parked there, the stairs were having some work done, but it was all good because we pulled in the wrong driveway. Okay, we'll turn around. But no, it was nice. They called us on the way there. We actually got 2 phone calls explaining that there was work being done to the front of the house, but that everything else would be ready to go and there was nothing wrong with the inside. And as it turns out, they were absolutely correct. Here's us fast motion. Everybody's moving. Hey, look at that.
We could not wait to get down and see the beach. We knew when we left Fremont that we had to find a place that was going to be better than what we were leaving. And in Michigan, the way you do that is you get a place on the water. This place even had kayaks, and that was something that we had been dying to try for a long time. So we were thrilled.
I couldn't wait to get the drone up in the air, and the kids couldn't wait to get on the kayaks. It was going to be awesome. But first, always first, let's do this thing. Speed unload, speed unload, speed unload, speed unload, speed unload, speed unload. Ah, deep breath. We made it. Now, normally after all that speed unloading, we'd want nappy times, but we were all really excited to get to the beach and check it out. So Amanda found a kayak and we broke out to Rome for round 2. Say hi, everybody. It's amazing how clear the water was and how big the rocks were in the water. It really was the perfect setup down there at that camp. I mean, even the right number of chairs. I think Amanda was enjoying herself as well.
It's pretty wild that I'm out here in a kayak. I used to be really scared of water. But this is probably the most peaceful
most chill thing that like I've ever done in my life. And it's pretty amazing. I feel like this just opened up my eyes to so many more things I want to go see and do now. It's pretty crazy. The big white Victorian on the corner of 7th and Main Street in Corden, Kentucky was always home to me. My grandfather purchased the house when he and my grandmother were married. My mother was one of 6 kids that were all raised in that house. Eventually, my mom and dad would meet, marry, and have me. We lived in a modest home in Henderson until my parents divorced when I was 5. I was about to begin kindergarten and my mother asked me if I wanted to stay in Henderson or go back to the family home in Corden and stay with my grandfather. My grandfather was my hero. He loved me like no other. He remodeled a bedroom for me and asked me how I wanted it. I asked for it to be pink, top to bottom, and asked him to build me a stage so that I had a place to perform. The thing about being an only child is that you have a lot of time to learn to dream and be creative. When my mom put me in dance classes at age 4, I quickly found a love for being a performer. I used to embarrass my mother by dancing and singing in Kmart. The entire world was my stage, and I was determined to one day be a star. Most kids drop their big dreams by the time they're grown, but not me. I had a village of people to push me through. I learned to work hard from my dad. I've never known this man to wake up on any given day and not have a purpose. As I got older, I would find that the apple doesn't fall very far from that tree. I'm truly blessed to have had him as an example to follow. He taught me that failing isn't an option and that we always find a way to make it work. My mother just wanted the best for me, no matter what that was. When I faltered, she would push me harder. She knew even before I did that I was capable of anything I set my mind to. And then there was the angel in my life, Phyllis Ann. She was my greatest blessing until my children came along. My maternal grandmother struggled with mental illness her whole life. When she had trouble taking care of her children, my mother found solace across the backfield from us, in her best friend Cindy's family's home. Cindy was one of the most vibrant people I ever knew. She was always so full of life. I think that's a lot of where I get my own zest for life from. Cindy's parents were Phyllis and Clarence. They took my mother in and they loved her and supported her when her own mother couldn't. And when I was born, they took me in too. From the time I was born, they took me in just like their grandchild. Even when they eventually had their own grandchildren, I was still theirs too. They never made a difference between us. I spent so much time across the field at their place. I wanted to be there more than I wanted to be home most of the time. It wasn't just because of the loneliness of being an only child, but more because I felt so much incredible love and joy just being with them. We made so many wonderful memories in that kitchen over the years. She encouraged my creativity in every way, no matter how wild my ideas were. She would let me pull out all the pots and pans from the cabinets and build a drum set out of them in the middle of the kitchen floor. She would tell me these stories, and they were so beautiful. And they were all about the animals that secretly owned the businesses we would visit whenever we went into town. She made me fall in love with storytelling. Her husband Clarence made sure I got to do fun stuff outdoors every day. He'd take me swimming in the lakes around town, and we'd go skipping rocks. There was this one bridge in Corden that we went to often. Still to this day, it's my favorite place to escape into nature when I need a little quiet time. I consider myself the luckiest person in the world to have had 2 people who were not blood related to me in any way treat me just like I was their own. They've really encouraged me to be creative. If it hadn't been for them, I don't know if I ever would have believed that I could do that for a living. What I realize now that I'm older is that they did not allow me to have a limiting belief system. They believed in me so much that I thought everything was possible. Phyllis was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer in September of 2001. By January of 2002, she had succumbed to her illness and passed away. It was the hardest loss I've ever experienced to this day. It was like losing a parent. It's now been just as long that I've been without her as I had her. On the same day that Phyllis passed away, the family home in Corden struck an electrical fire in the attic and it burned to the ground. When my grandfather passed away, the home was sold and we moved to Henderson, but that would always be home, no matter where I was. In one day, everything that I had called home was gone. A month to the day after losing Phyllis, I would find out that I was pregnant with Noah. Life has a funny way of giving you exactly what you need right when you need it. I think God knew that I was going to need another big love to fill that void, and man, did I ever get one. Becoming a mom meant that it was time to put my plans on the back burner for a while. At that point, it didn't matter to me if I was a star anymore. I just needed to be able to give my baby the best life. After having been fired from a sales job when Noah was a year old, I let my unemployment run out and began searching for a new job. I ended up getting one working for a school photography company. I thought it would be awesome to have summers off, so I was all for it. Within weeks, I realized how much I loved it. I'd spend a few years working for that company and then work for another photography company for 2 more years. During that time, I'd give birth to my daughter. We named her Sophie and would quickly learn that she had the same fire that I always did. It was time to give both of those kids every advantage to be who they would be, just the way I had. I wanted to show them that dreams were possible. At that time, I wanted to start my own business and run it the way I wanted to. For me, it was always about the people and their stories. So with nothing but an entry-level camera, I started a portrait photography business. It's now been a decade that I've been out here telling other people's stories for them in the way that only I could. My camera has taken me all over the country, and I've gotten to see every dream I ever had come true. I don't perform so much anymore, but that fire still lives in me. When I met Neil, I instantly knew he had that same fire too, and that's a big reason why we work so well. All these years, I've still been trying to replace what I knew to be home to me. Then I met the love of my life and his amazing kid, and all of a sudden I had this big, awesome family. Who would have thought that that was what I needed all along? It was then that I knew that home would be wherever these other 4 people in my life are. They're what matters the most. Home isn't a place anyways. It's love, it's laughter, it's a memory. It's being together and encouraging each other to be exactly who they are every single day.
And I was starting to see that more and more the more time we all spent together. It really gives me something to think about. Guess while I think about it, why don't we enjoy a little mini montage, courtesy of the crystal clear waters of Grand Traverse Bay. There's nothing like the warm feeling a good montage will give you. Speaking of warm feelings, I was having a pretty warm feeling about the drone. And I think I was getting better, and now I had moving targets to aim at. Noah and Thorin went off and just had a blast. I could almost smell the brotherly love. Oh boy. Wait a minute. What bump? Wait, splash? Wait a minute, guys. What's going on here? Noah. Oops. Flippy. I think Noah had a little accident there. But don't worry, he was okay. The water is only about 2 feet deep. There he is. He did want to take a break, though, after that for a little bit, which I can understand. Other than that little minor accident, everybody seemed to be having a blast for their first time on a kayak. For being such a large body of water, I was incredibly shocked at how calm and clear the water was. All that was needed to close out the day was a good campfire. Okay, I can do this. I can do this. I really can do this. Come on. All I need is the paper that's over there. Just the paper. Noah, please help me out. You'll have to excuse the wave noise. Noah's not impressed.
Charlie Teeny, we got it. Charlie Teeny, someone put a pudding on. We're calling Dr. Kettle.
Who is Charlie Teeny? That's a great question. Well, it's a long old story. One, if we had time, I would tell you. But we don't have time, so here we go. Look at me. I think I've almost got the fire started. Maybe a song and dance will help.
Come on, get the fire started now. We'll get it started right now. And you don't fall down, you stupid piece of paper. I mean,
Here's an instant replay of that dance move if anybody wants to, you know, write it down or, I don't know. Speaking of writing something down, Noah's about to ask the contender for question of the year right here. Pay attention.
you wonder what
Oh?
back in the 1800s. Cows? I would hope they were kind of the same. Well, I mean, nowadays cows, they can't do anything.
And he's got a great point. Nowadays, cows really don't do nothing. They spend their day lazing around the beach, walking around, checking out their sailboats, you know, or just lazing around, clogging up the streets, causing trouble, you know? Where does this accent come from? Man, I remember back in my day, back in the 1800s, them cows were organized, okay? They had a plan. They were going to school, they were gonna get smart, and they were gonna take over everything, okay? Then the great lunch meat crisis of 1902 happened, and, well, guess the rest is history. But I digress. I think I'd about got the fire started, and that's when I noticed, off to the side, maybe I shouldn't use paper. Maybe I should use this pile of little sticks and kindling over here. Isn't that what that's for?
We got fire coming down to the big old town again. Everybody gonna be warm and they'll see Lisa around the area. Really makes you feel like a man when you start a fire after 40 attempts. But we didn't give up, and we used what nature gave us instead of what people printed us. And look at this. See? Back in the olden times, they didn't have things called paper. They had things called sticks, and they used them to start fires with. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you fire. I give you enjoyment.
You know, I look back at this footage now, and I think this was the night when it really, really hit home for me that I was a part of something bigger. Because making that fire really gave me joy. Seeing the light in Amanda's eyes that night, like something had changed for sure. And I started to believe that what she said was true. It didn't matter where I was. Here we are in a totally, completely different place, and I felt more home than I felt in a long time. So, negative thought identified. We went back in and our meals had arrived. Yay! So we finished our wonderful meals and headed for home. Find an area that your child is really lacking in and focus on that area. At the end of the day, turn around or end up with a drone all wet, which I wasn't really prepared to do.
Why are you trying to turn
It never
around?
actually happened. I thought of my sister, and I thought of how we used to sing together as kids, and she was always in honor choir and a great singer, so I thought, hey, let's start working together.